Welcome to What the World Needs Now with hosts Tom Whisinnand and Josh Monroe. We hope that you're able to leave feeling encouraged and ready for another day of changing lives in the field of education as we speak with inspirational teachers from across the nation and world about what keeps their spark lit.
In this episode, we talk with LeeAnn Pule Viernes, the social, emotional, and behavior team lead for the Windward District on the Hawaiian island of Oahu, about how it truly takes a village and meaningful relationships to make all students successful. Without any further ado, LeeAnn Pule Viernes.
LeeAnn, thank you so much for being here with us today. For our listeners that don't have the privilege of knowing who you are, could you tell us a little bit about yourself? Who are you, where are you from, and what's your role in education?
Aloha, my name is LeeAnn Pule Viernes. My friends call me Kiala. I am from the state of Hawaii, and I live in a really small town on the island of Oahu, North Shore, called Kahuku. I am currently employed with the State of Hawaii Department of Education and the Windward District. I am the social, emotional, and behavioral intervention team lead for I run the intensive special education and intensive behaviors program. And we specialize in providing consultation, observation, data collection, intervention strategies and support, targeted behavior support for homeschool campuses. And then if a student really requires a more intensive setting, we do have a classroom that we run, a therapeutic classroom, highly structured, designed specifically to address the student's social, emotional, behavior, and academic needs.
That's incredible. That's a lot.
Yeah, it is.
It's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, whoa, that's a lot on your plate.
It is, and we're a team of 5 right now. So, but awesome 5. The Windward District has 34 schools total. Okay. So a school will reach out if they have behavior needs to our district educational specialists, and then we as a team will take whatever data they may have and decide what level of support they may need from us. Some might just be as simple as getting together with the teachers and collaborating on different strategies, helping them set up a schedule, more structured, giving them interventions, which can be done, over Zoom or like in a PD area. Some might need additional data. And so then I'll send my team out there to take data, or we have QR codes now for our data forms. And so we'll give them the QR code so they can take data and we get it and can analyze it. And then if they still need help, I will send people there to be on campus to give targeted behavior interventions and structure. So not like a behavior technician, but similar in that role. They're more educational assistants, so they can also assist the teachers. And then if that's still not enough and the student is still just not able to perform and just kind of maybe needs a little more intimate setting that's more structured, then they would come to our class after we've had many meetings with parents and things like that. So it's a very long process, but we enjoy it.
That is a long process. Josh, what do you think? That's pretty incredible that there's that many tiers of support.
Yeah, I love that, because especially, coming on this end of the pandemic, kids need that right now, right? Like a lot of our kids need that support.
Yeah, we're working with one school right now where it's not, well, the target might be one kid. There, it's actually a classroom thing with the whole classroom, and he's just like the standout student for the behaviors. So we've been helping. I've done a few PDs with the teachers as far as like how they can structure their classroom, getting SEL in there, not necessarily as okay, today we're doing SEL style, but more of a like, here's the structure and routine. What are our academic behavior goals for today? What are some strategies we can use? What are some coping strategies? Going over that and giving them consistency that way. And that seems to kind of help a lot of teachers settle down, because they don't realize that they're doing SEL and they just don't know how to play off of what they're doing and kind of like expand on it. So we've been kind of taking that approach, and it seems to be helping. I really like that, I don't know if it's an analogy. I'm not really, it's early for us here, but where you don't change the plant, you change the environment kind of thing. So I'm really big on like having my staff and I look at what's going on around them and trying to make adjustments that way. And so, yeah, that's really been helping them a lot. So they've noticed a big change with the entire class and even with the student as well. And so that's been kind of great to see.
LeeAnn, I have to commend you. I really do, because um,
Thanks.
I think that a lot of people, a lot of great teachers do social emotional learning, and
Mhm.
they are not aware of it. They're not mindful that they're doing it. It is
Yeah.
what good teaching is. It should permeate your practice as an educator from the start of your morning to the end of the day. But a lot of educators do view it as something extra. It's the little lessons. It's the cutesy cutesy.
Yeah.
And that can be part of it, but it's not all of it. It is setting goals. If you look at the core competencies set forth in
Yeah.
the castle, it is setting goals, it is self-regulation, it is interacting with peers, and so uh,
It really
congratulations
is.
for getting educators to see that, like, it is social emotional learning uh,
Yeah.
at the core of good teaching.
Well, I have to say, so for the pandemic, because we do have such a specialized class, right? When we went on pandemic, I had just received 2 new students in our classroom, and we were just building rapport, just starting to get things going. They were making positive gains, and then we pandemicked,
Mm.
right? And so everybody had to shift and do things differently. However, for us, we took it in a different approach. So when we transitioned a student back to their homeschool, we had already started before pandemic doing it virtually, right? So we didn't want to because we're such a small staff, we didn't want to send a student to another school and then send a staff with them to transition, and we'll be down a staff just in case. So I asked the teachers, could we join your classroom virtually?
Mm.
Just set up a camera, whatever. I'll mute our side just so the student can see how the routine is, what's going on. So we kind of already had that in place, right? And so what we noticed is when the kids were at home, it wasn't as difficult for us as a staff to transition to that, but we had to adjust our mind shift on what school looked like, right? So for us, contractually, we are like, 750 to 250 kind of school, for prep and all of that. Well, my staff and I agreed that we will work our contracted hours, but we will provide support from 7 to 7.
Mm.
So we split up our Zooms, we split up our when we call in, and we provided that consistent routine across the entire day. So behaviors dropped down at home, and kids were a lot more manageable for their parents. Like my staff provided, I mean, we were like counselors, we were event people, we were your other parent, like we had a kid who swore a lot of his parents at home and didn't do that with us. So we would like, okay, so when I would do the morning, because that's when we did academic. I would do the morning session from like 7 to 10. And then I said, okay, at 12 o'clock, you're going to get a call from Mr. Nihoa. He's one of my EAs. And they talk to the parents first. How's it going? Did they do their work? What problems were you having? How's the behavior? And then the parents would just like dump everything on him, right? Like, they're doing this and this and this. And he like, okay, stop. So this is what works for us at school. Try these strategies and see. And let me talk to so and so. And then he'd get on the phone with this and be like, hey, your mom said you're doing this. What happened? Tell me. And then be like, she didn't do it. Okay, so stop. What should you do? Work me through it. What's the process? And so that really helped, keep that there. And then at the end, the closeout, we started closeout like between 5 and 7. I have Mr. Sola, who's another one of my EAs at the time. Do the closeout with like, were you able to do the strategies that Mr. Nihoa told you? Were you able to finish your work that Mrs. Pule Viernes did with you? Were you able to do these things? What needs to be different for tomorrow? And then they'd contact me and be like, okay, so this is our checklist, this is what's done. And well, that's not a typical school day. That provided such a support system for the families that it made all the difference when we came back to school.
That's what I love listening to you is the relationship that you have, not just with your students, but with the family as a whole. Because
You
at least,
have to.
yeah, in my career, when I first started, I didn't understand the importance of that, of building it with their grown-ups at home too. So
Mhm.
how do you get that buy-in from them? Because sometimes there's parents that don't trust school or had bad experiences, and that can be a difficult bond to create.
Yeah, so our program is very transparent with parents. So I mean, it is a structured program for your higher, that higher 1% clientele. I mean, we've just started to branch out into the more general stream. and everything there. So we're working with schools. But when you do it with the parents, you really want to know, and we want them to be on our side. So we always tell them, like, first of all, I don't give homework. That's the first thing, because I feel like that's a huge struggle and battle at home. At least for the first, month and a half or so with us, they don't get homework. The only way they would get that is if they didn't finish it in school, and then I would let the parents know. And so my main thing there is like, hey, this is what they have coming home. If they're not going to do it, don't do it. Like, just don't do it. Just write me a note, send me a text, email, however you want to do, smoke signals, let us know, and we'll handle that in the morning. But we also tell them if they have behaviors at home. So if they're yelling at you, they're non-compliant, they're destructive. It's Saturday morning in Kahuku. They're destructive, you fear for safety, there's something wrong. Let us know, because we will talk to them about it. We will address that. Hey, what happened at home? So mom said you did this. What was going on? Oh, well, okay, so here's the steps. We will be that partner, because a lot of the kids we get are from single family homes. We rarely get, we just barely got 2 students who had 2 parents. It was amazing. Different, but amazing, so a lot of them here, single family or being raised, we're multi-generational here. So being raised by grandparents and such. And so we want to be that support system. We try to get on the same page as much as possible. If they don't like something, they're able to tell us, and then we will tell them the rationale behind it. I've had families where like the mom is the primary and the dad is the weekend parent. And so would always put down the parent. And so it just so happened, like on a weekend, I saw him at his job and he was like going, telling me all the bad things about the mom. And I just flipped it around. I was like, you know what? You're so lucky. You're so lucky that you get to be the fun parent. I said, that's something I would be so grateful for. Cause I was like, imagine being the parent who we have to do homework. We have to go to bed. We have to get up in the morning. We have to do these things. I said, that must be super stressful. You're so fortunate to have her do that. That totally changed his like, oh, what? Wait, what? And so like meetings, when we came together as a group, meetings were so much better for them, because it was like, sitting in a meeting when you have parents who are arguing against each other is super, super rough for us as educators, but that changed everything. The last meeting I had with them, which was a while, I like almost cried, because he was like, I applauded the parents because the kid was transitioning out of our program. He was doing well at his current school. He didn't have a one-to-one. He knew how to use it. He had all the things going on for him. And I was like, I'm so proud of you parents for working together at home. And, it's amazing. I appreciate you, and the dad, like, I got to stop you. It really isn't me. It's her. She did it all. She does the hard stuff. And I'm appreciative for her. Imagine as an educator, how you feel. Like, I wanted to cry. I was like, oh my gosh, this is the moment, guys. And she was like, thank you, like just that little change helped him. He's a one of our star baseball players in the area for Little League. I think he's in 9th grade now. So it's, but I haven't heard any real drama about him in a while. And I track all my students, like all of them. It doesn't matter. Like the ones that have graduated, I've tracked them all. So it's really good to see that and know that like these kids are going through trauma that we don't know. And so how can we help them deal with it? And how can we help the families deal with it? We can't just scratch the surface. And that's where a lot of people go wrong, I guess. Or not wrong, but they don't want to dig deeper. It gets scary below the water. Yeah. But we kind of have to. So my team and I kind of make a conscious effort to do that.
Yeah. What you're saying is absolutely true. I think it's easy to skim the surface. It's easy to be on top of the water. And when you do dive deep and you start investigating a lot of the whys as to behaviors or trauma, the answers aren't pretty a lot of times. No. And we don't want to necessarily deal with that. And it sounds like you've done a marvelous job of honing your craft of teaching and community building. And I think it's absolutely amazing what you're doing with your students and families and community. Thanks. I have to ask, what made you get into education, right? So you were doing an amazing job, but what was the start of your story, LeeAnn?
So I kind of always knew I wanted to be a teacher. My dad was a social studies teacher at Kahuku High School and became the athletic director there. And my mom was a longtime teacher. She started at Kahuku High School in elementary, and then she moved to Sunset. The story, well, it's not the story, it's the truth. She came with the buildings. Like literally when they opened that school, she was like one of the first teachers. And so they've instilled in me, my brother and my sister, that education is important. And so I always knew I wanted to be a teacher. And so, yeah, I kind of wanted to follow in their footsteps that way, honing my craft as far as like what I wanted to do. I was an EA for a long time, and I loved working with students, and I love special education. They're just so different, there's nothing wrong. They're just different. You got to figure out a way. And so I love puzzles. So that was a good one. And then I had a mentor teacher, Callie Carvalho, who is now an autism consultant teacher in our district. And she was amazing as just a regular teacher, and so she was my mentor there. And I fell into this program where you could be an EA, right, and take college classes at night, and I could student teach with her. It's like a no-brainer, right, kind of thing. So I did that, and the way it worked out, it was like she was leaving her position to go into a new one. They were going to interview, so I submitted my application, and I got the job for halfway through the year, and I had the worst caseload ever. Like I knew the kids, my caseload, which was fine. I think I had like 17 the first year, kindergarten, first grade in a resource, but I was one of the only certified SPED teachers on campus. So I ghost wrote like 17 others with a we called them instructors at the time. She wasn't certified yet. So I helped her write hers. So my caseload was 34. Right? The first year, your first semester, it was like, okay, what do we do? And I just did it, like I had a really good team. I started off at Sunset Beach Elementary School, and I had a really good support staff. My mom was still a teacher there, so that was really cool for the most part. I mean, in the beginning, we're totally different people. She and my dad have since passed, but we're totally different people. And so everyone's like, your mom's there. I was like, no, if you've ever watched us together, no, we're not the same. Like we'll argue like nobody's, business, because we're coming from it from different angles, kind of thing. And so that was different, but I had a really good like lower L support in kindergarten and first grade. The general ed teachers were so willing to work with special education that it made all the difference. And so I was able to focus on, building that parent rapport.
Yeah.
I started when autism's always been a thing, but when it first started to ramp up, which within our district. And so I had a lot of high profile cases, where parents were trying all these things to cure it. Like I had kids who were gluten-free. I had kids who did specific diets, not just gluten, but like fermented food, or they were in oxygenation chambers, or they did all these things. Yeah. There was a gluten-free lifestyle, meaning they cannot touch anything, so I had to, that learning curve was huge, right? I had to jump on there and be like, okay, first of all, what is gluten? Because like, I don't care. That's not my thing right now. I'm pro carbs kind of thing. So, what is that? And so I had to research it like a lot, I had to call companies, and find out like, it does, can I have the MSDS report of your paper? Does it have any kind of gluten in there? What kind of pens or, can we use? Do I need to make packets? What kind of paint? And so with that, and knowing for the parents there, knowing that I would go that extra mile really made a difference, for them. And it really started to let me see as a beginning educator that, just getting the parents on your side can be like more than 50% of the battle.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I when I left that school to get into this new position, I still have parents who like, one of them who was extremely ASD. Mom was very enthusiastic about him. Ended up being in my mom's 6th grade class one year. And so my mom was like, can you come and help me do my 6th grade night? And I was like, sure, because I have nothing better to do after my long day. But I did, I went, and the mom was like, oh my God, are you coming back here? I was like, no. What's the problem? What happened? And she was like, this is going on. I was like, okay, I'll talk to this, we'll talk. And so I brought the SPED teacher over, and I was like, hey, this is, I know you've met the mom. This is what's going on. And we had a conversation, but I included him, and they had a better rapport because I included him. That's what keeps me inspired. Yeah. So it started with my parents, and just my experiences through school and through making these connections keep me inspired. I have met in this position so many amazing teachers who don't think they're amazing. And that, that just breaks my heart. So like our job now too, as a team, is we are there to help build that confidence. You guys are doing great. Don't think that just because we're on your campus helping with a student that you need to defer to us all the time. No, we're here to back you up, what you're doing, because you're awesome. So yeah.
Well, I really like what you're saying because I go to the saying, it takes a village, right? Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what you guys are doing. The way that you're building trust with your students, your parents, the community, like that's amazing stuff because not everybody has that capability.
Well, I come from an amazing community. So, I mean, Kahuku is a really small town, but, and we have a lot of great, we have one high school. I mean, in the Windward District, there are only 4, period. And they're really spread out, but Kahuku is by far the most away from the rest, if that makes any sense. In Hawaii, it makes sense. And we have 5 feeder schools, which may seem small, but there's in a mainland sense, but they're so far apart and they're so different in what the kid, just their culture. And so the town of Kahuku itself, like right now, it's Saturday, you barely hear anything. It's like 10:30.
Yeah. But
let there be a football game, let there be an event at the school, the entire community comes out for that. It does take a village, and we consider that, a village. I mean, I can't express how much the community here helps me, be who I am and what I do, because I can see it in like the friends that I have from school or even in their parents and so forth. Like we had an open door policy when I was growing up. I grew up one town over in LeeAnn, which literally is 5 minutes away. Okay, 5. I went to Kahuku High School, but like we had an open door policy. I mean, there were times when like I had 6 or 7 friends who lived with us in my high school years. My brother has like a squad who lived with us at the time. Even my sister did. I mean, I cooked meals for like 10 to 15 people, and not like it was my normal. Yeah. And that's just one house, that's how it is for the most part through the community. It's just very, family centered, and like that sense of belonging really does make a difference to me.
LeeAnn, can we back up a little bit? Because, on the mainland, we have, it's school districts by the county, or it's this land area with clearly defined lines.
Right.
I'm really curious. Would you just educate us that may not know what the structure is in Hawaii and kind of how
Hawaii is one school district. It's one district just for the state, or one school system there. That's what. There are many districts. So islands have different districts as well. So like Kauai is its own island, but I'm pretty sure that's its own district. Okay. On Oahu, which is where we live, there are I work in the Windward District. There's a Leeward District, a Central.
3 districts. Okay.
Even better. Yeah, that makes sense. I had to think about it. And they're all different as well. Like the Big Island, probably it's a bigger island, so it might have like 2 or 3. Maui, I think, is one, which encompasses the island of Lanai and Molokai as well, if I'm not mistaken. For the most part, we're separated that way because we're on islands. There's no bridges. That would be an amazing thing to invent, but there's no bridges to cross them. And so it's totally different. Funding's different for each island, what we get. And even if you just look at Oahu, the different districts have different needs based on what they're. So like Windward District is considered more rural, and so is like Leeward's considered more rural. They hit more poverty areas. Central does have areas that have poverty in it, but it's way more condensed. So like Honolulu, Waikiki, that kind is all in there. I mean, we all have the same challenges, but it's just totally different. I know a lot of, like in the mainland, it is like that, right? It's like a school district is one thing, and that's where your union is just for that. Whereas ours is a state union.
Okay.
We are the Hawaii State Teachers Union, because it's just one district or one school system. Yeah. I know, it's unique. It's totally unique.
It is.
Oh,
And I love to learn. I love to learn about unique
yeah,
situations because I think it's important as educators we realize that we may be different, but we
yeah,
still good teaching is good teaching no matter where it
mhm,
is, no matter what we do.
totally.
Um,
Yeah, and it's important for us to learn beyond our scope, right? Like where we're at. It's important to have
Yeah.
a wider view of what education is like, even just in America and the differences that we have.
Yes, exactly. It really is.
LeeAnn, I keep going back to the story of you were talking about the kid who would cuss out his parents and
Yeah.
how just how you built those relationships. We've got some new teachers that listen. We've got aspiring teachers. So I'm curious, what advice would you give to them as they get ready to enter their career?
You don't know everything. You don't know everything, and relationships are important. You need to just remember the why. Why did you want to become a teacher? Was it to make a difference? I'm sure it wasn't a paycheck. Come on now. Um, but was it to make a difference? And if it really was to make a difference, you need to take that time to build those relationships. Because the smallest thing, I mean, even just greeting kids at the door, I love watching those videos where they have all these cute, unique, different ways to greet people at the door. That makes a huge difference. And I mean, just you want to be you, because we're all different, right? So you have to use what works for you. So I mean, know what you're good at, try to hone that, and then try to tweak it. I mean, it's not going to happen overnight. I wish that I was probably an excellent teacher when I first started. And if anybody asks, I was
I
amazing.
was.
I was amazing. But I know better now.
Mm.
Even the style of like how I did things before, when I do keep, records, and I go back and look, and I was like, oh my God, what did I write? Why did I do that? That's not right. Kind of thing. It's just, you evolve with time. You're never going to know everything going in right when you start. Be willing and open to learn.
That's what I heard from you, right? Like
Yeah.
if we admit that we don't know everything, then we're
Yeah.
keeping ourselves open to be those lifelong learners that we want our students to be.
Yep. And you're not always going to learn it from a book. Like that's my main thing. Like I'm probably going to get in trouble. It's okay. Um, I'm like the worst person to be like, what methodology or pedagogy are you? I don't know. That I learned that in college. Like that was a long time ago. I can't tell you, those things. But if you ask me what you can do, I can tell you those things. Like I'm not gonna be able to say like that was Bloom's or that was that. No, no. Like Bloom's is right now the only one I can remember off the top of my head to give you. Yeah, no. But if you ask me or even my staff, we may not be able to tell you the exact psychologist or person or early interventionist who did it, but we're doing that. So when they go, oh, you're doing, okay, yeah, that's what we're doing. Yeah. Because it's not about the titles of what it is. It's about effectively what you can do and how you can make a difference.
What you're saying is absolutely right, and I think given the scope of what we do, the personalities that we deal with. I mean, there are so many motivators for each individual student, for each individual person.
Yeah.
Um, Keeping all those names, I mean, there's probably some teachers that do that, LeeAnn. I'm the same way.
Yeah.
They escape me sometimes. I know what
Yep.
I'm doing is the best practice. I've taken the time. Josh takes the time to
Yes.
reflect on practices. The best you use best practices, but
Yep.
keeping the name straight can be
Yep.
really, really tough. So
Yeah, and the thing is like collaboration to me, when you collaborate, and it doesn't always have to be teacher to teacher or or boss, whatever, but when you collaborate with a team around a specific goal, that's when you get the best results to me. I I, I know a lot. We all know a lot. I mean, if we didn't, we wouldn't, be trying to teach somebody else what we know. But I don't know everything. And so like I really value my staff. We come together. Um, we're a very unique staff. So while we have a home base and a home classroom, right now we don't have students there. So we are spread out throughout the district, meaning I could be at one school, somebody could be at another and another and another and another. So we communicate through text, we do Zooms, we do try to meet once a week in person to discuss the cases that we're working on and what could work. Like, what do you feel the school needs? Okay, so if you feel the school needs PD training, I would need to do that because that's my role. You know, I'm a teacher, I can do that. Or they need specific strategies on how to do a curriculum or an intervention, I got you. But if they need help, like support help, my staff is very capable. They need somebody to help data collect, I got that. We'll work it out. So we're very fluid that way right now. And I think that when we include the homeschool, so we meet as a school, or we meet as a department first, and then we go over the cases. And then we will do a professional meeting with that school to bring them in, to let them know, okay, here's our suggestions. Take it or leave it. We're not going to force you. You know, that's not our style, but we're willing to help you learn this and give you other tools that you may need. And we can come and help you there. And so when we do that, the schools feel more confident in their skill set. So we had a really nervous school who was going to transition a student that was coming from us from another district. And they were like, oh my gosh, we've never had a student like this. What do we do? What do we do? And I was like, okay, stop. First we breathe. And then I'm going to send somebody. I'm never just going to send a kid with nobody. Like, that's not a thing. Because then where's his safety net? Who's the people who know him? And I literally tell them the first thing you're going to do is you're going to build rapport. This is our schedule. This is what you can tweak, you know, come in and figure it out that way, and then build that. And then we went in, gave them strategies, and really tried to do that. Collaboration is key all the time, because they were like, oh, well, this works for us. That works for you. Use that because you have that setting. Use that. Okay, let's see what we can do to help you tweak that. You know, and they just are so appreciative. And it's so nice to see teachers who I know are excellent finally realize they're excellent. And they're like, oh, we can do that. Yeah, you can. You can totally do that. Rock that. You know, and then they're like, so we have this other student. Can you guys help with that? Sure. What's wrong with the other student? What do you need help with? You know, so it's really that collaboration for us.
I like that. That's important for all of us to remember, whether you're working with teachers or students, right? I love the take it or leave it, because I almost think that that's how teaching needs to be too, right? Like, we got to be guides on the side.
Yeah,
we got to give you strategies that you can use, but it's a take it or leave it. We can't make you do anything, right? We're going to show you why and tell you why it's important. We're going to give you some skills and some strategies to reach a goal.
Yeah,
take it or leave it.
And exactly. And not everything will work for a certain person. That's true of adults. So why can it not be true of children?
LeeAnn, I love that, because I think sometimes, for whatever reason, I'm guilty of it at school sometimes with my own children. Sometimes I don't treat people sometimes with that dignity or respect that they deserve, no matter if they're 5 years old or if they're 7 years old.
It is really hard.
You know, I don't know where that comes from. I don't know if it's because in school we have rules and you better do this, and we are driven by a curriculum and a set of standards that keeps us chop, 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 and we don't take time to invest in the humanity of our students or our relationships.
I mean, I think that's part of it, but I also think that it's our ego, right? Really, really, it's our ego. Like, we think our way is the best way.
Yeah.
Like, if you ask me if my way was the best way, I'm gonna tell you, yeah. Like, that's me. I'm gonna tell you, yeah. But then I need to take a step back and be like, okay, wait, that's not my class. That's not my setting. I need to see what's going on. I can give you what would work for me, but that might not be what works for you. Tell me about yourself. So sometimes I do ask those questions, you know, like, what do you like to do? What, you know, those kind of things. And I really like to get a feel for the person to kind of see if that will work for them. And then I usually preface things like, well, this is what works for me, and this is what works in our room. However, our setting's totally different, so it may not work for you. But I've had to learn that, you know, over the years. Like, I didn't start off that way, you know. Like, I'm coming from an environment that on the spectrum of, you know, where it least restrictive, I am the most restrictive environment classroom. So what rules may apply, the basic rules apply to everywhere, but what little nuances work for me may not work when you have a class of 10 or 12 or, you know, 25. Those are different. And so I needed to look at myself and be like, hey, wait, okay, let's go over there and look what's going on. Let's see what's happening and help them adjust that way. And so, I mean, it's really the ego. I mean, we all have it. It's just in what degree, you know?
Yeah, it's important for us to recognize that too, right? Like to be able to sit here and be like, sometimes my ego does get in the way
Yeah.
of what I probably should have done or how I should have reacted.
Yeah.
If we
Yeah.
if we push that to the back.
Yeah.
Well, LeeAnn, we always end with asking what the world needs now, and I'm super interested to hear what you got to share with us. Tom sometimes does the singing for us. Back in the 60s, they told us the world needed love.
Lots of love, LeeAnn.
What?
Honestly, I feel that the world needs compassion. I feel that the compassion for each other, just, you know, to be able to know that we are different and using compassion to empathize with other situations. Um, in our district, we're starting this thing called Compassionate Ko'olau. And so it is a program, or a program that is connecting the school and the DOE with outside services, you know, banks, musicians, just all types of outside service providers that could help schools. In the Windward District, there's Ko'olau and Ko'olau Loa. There's two separate areas. Again, very different from but we're starting there, and they're starting to really try and get that community connection, which is very important in Hawaii. We really feel a lot of community connection there. So I feel like compassion is a really important thing, but I also feel like connection, which ties into compassion, being able to connect to your students, being able to connect with their families, being able to connect with the place that you're from. So Hawaii, like your Wahipana, that place that you come from, because that's a connection that's higher than anything else, really, right? You start with your family. So doing that, we've done a lot of trying to incorporate Hawaiian values and that cultural aspect, and knowing where you come from, not just your school, not just your family, but that place, that community, that island, your state, building that connection there to build a more positive world, right? And then being able to communicate. Communication is key. So being able to speak in a way that others will understand. What I say in an intellectual way to others of my peers is not the same way that I'm going to talk to a student.
Right.
You know, I might use that same terminology. I'm big on using words that I know my kids don't understand and then defining it in the same sentence. And so I will say things like, we need to be more empathetic, which means, and then telling them what it means, and then going back and then starting to use that to help them build vocabulary, but also to help them when they get older, but also being able to communicate with parents, being very transparent, being very willing to use language that they understand. My staff and I do digital communication logs with our parents and our school teams. So if we have a student who is within our classroom, I have the entire team on there. Outside service providers, the homeschool team, my team, the parents, doctors, anything that's going on. So one, we're all on the same page. Everybody gets the same message. If there are questions, we can clarify it there, and we can stay connected. We can be compassionate towards other, and we can communicate. Because how can you expect somebody else to know what's going on if you cannot articulate it in a way that they understand? So for me, yeah, compassion, connection, and communication, though, that's what the world needs now.
I love it. The 3 C's.
Exactly what I was going to say. The 3 C's.
I didn't even think of that, but yeah.
I think they're all C's. There's not a K in there or anything.
No.
That communication piece is really big, especially as, you know, the world becomes more connected, but at the same time, I feel like we're losing part of that communication piece, like especially in person, or even sitting behind a keyboard and like being able to say whatever you want because you're like you're not face to face. So I think that communication piece is definitely something we got to have more of. Because you're right, then it goes down to, well, if we can communicate effectively, we can be more empathetic and compassionate towards understanding somebody else's story.
Yes.
If only it was that easy, we could just speak it into existence. And
it is but you just have to, it is doable. You just have to do it one child at a time, one school at a time. I mean, that's the one thing that I think we've learned as a team, as my, you know, we're called the Kupa'a Academy. Kupa'a means to be steadfast and strong. But we've learned that, we can make a difference. We all can make a difference. And if you look at it as you're making the difference in one child's world, then, and you take a step back, how many children have you already touched? How many worlds have you already changed?
That's a great way to look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes this big issue that our world needs a lot easier to
So much
tackle.
smaller. Yeah, because the thing is like, we're all connected some way. We just might not realize it. I mean, again, coming from a super small community, we're all connected. Like a lot of the parents of kids that I've worked with, my dad and my mom taught them. It's super small and connected. What I noticed when we work specifically and focus on what a student needs, whatever touches that student's life is going to be changed. So how can we change that student's life? We change the environment. We work at home. We build that connection, communication there. But the way that they talk to that student, the way that they talk to their child later, that's changed. Yeah. That's effectively changed. That could change the way that they talk to others. So I do have an EA who is also, well, actually 2 of my EAs are both coaches for football. It's changed the way that we do things now. It's changed the way that they fundamentally teach their players. So the way that we've worked on with one kid has changed us. And now the way that we work with somebody else is affected. It's just a ripple effect. It's that Pocahontas in the leaf thing.
LeeAnn, thank you so much for taking some time.
Thanks for wanting me.
This has been educational on so many levels, and your passion is just, I think that's what the world needs now, is a bunch of LeeAnns changing one student at a time.
Oh no, we don't want that. That's too much.
Well, thank you again for being here with us. This has been amazing.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's our show. We're so thankful and appreciative that you took your time to listen to our guest, LeeAnn Pule Viernes. Hopefully you're ready for another week of changing lives, and hopefully what the world needs now is helping you to sustain your inspiration as we journey through this school year. If it is, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It helps us to continue to get inspirational educator stories out.
We hope that as you head out, you remember the biggest factor that plays into student success is you. Your love, your passion, your empathy, your dedication. It's exactly what the world needs now. Thank you for everything you do. Have a good one.